this is our shoulder development video where we're going to go over a list of exercises that are very specifically going to develop this outer part of our shoulder. Right? So this is called our deltoid, and it's the part that gives us the it's almost like your shoulders are wearing a helmet or shoulder pads, and that's what we call our deltoid. And we've got a set of 5 different exercises to take you through that are going to very specifically target the muscles around here that'll give it 1, a nice aesthetic look, but then also 2, give it some high function and potentially help it feel good and things like that. 2 big things to know about the shoulder whenever we're developing the muscle on the outside, visually to see those muscles, is that you need adequate mobility and adequate stability, right? So you need, and those need to come from the surrounding muscles around it and some of the deeper muscles inside of your shoulder capsule, right? So right here, this is what we call our shoulder capsule. Everything that's inside of there has to be mobile and has to be stable. And that's how you get all the different exercises that we're going to do and do them safely and do them where you're going to be developing muscle and also not injuring ourselves at the same time that you're doing it. This first exercise is what we call a band pull apart. So I've got a band right here, and the idea behind this one is to use all the muscles in the back of our shoulder. So that's what we call our rear deltoid. So it's the rear, so like front, side, back. This back part right here is what we call the rear deltoid, and deltoid is our shoulder muscles. It's the anatomical name of our muscles. It's called deltoid. And what you do is you hold the band out in front just like this, and then without bending my arms, I'm going to pull the band apart and then pull it to my chest. I'm just going to adjust my mic real fast, put it a little bit lower so I don't actually hit it. And this is going to go through 10 of these. And there's 10. This next exercise is what we call a upside down kettlebell press. Now the nice thing about this is that when you hold the kettlebell upside down, it forces a lot of stability to happen, not just on the outside of my shoulder here. So I'm using this front muscle right here in my shoulder, so we call this the anterior deltoid, or the front of your shoulder, so your front delt. But this muscle right here is what presses up, but because it's bottoms up like this, it actually uses a lot of deeper muscles to hold steady. Think of a tree with like big branches flowing around in place. It's got to have deep, strong roots, and that's essentially all the muscles that we're targeting when we do this. So for this one, I actually split my stance, and I started about 90, like 80 to 90 degrees right here, make myself nice and tall, and then press on up, and then go for 10. And there's my 10. That is the bottom up kettlebell press. This next exercise is what we call a lateral raise. And the thing about the lateral raise is that it very specifically targets this middle delt, right? So this middle part right here. So again, if you have a front, a middle, and a back, this one targets this muscle right here. Now, we want to do this, right? This is what we're doing, is bringing the weights up like this, but there's 2 things to keep in mind. Number 1, we're not coming way up here, because then that starts to use this muscle. We don't want to use that muscle. We want to keep it here. We don't want to use this. But then the other thing is, when we elevate our arm up, we don't want to be so rigid in our back that our arm moves independently from our back muscles. So I'm going to pull my shirt a little bit tighter right here. I'm going to show you what's happening, what you want to happen as you lift up. So as I pull this up, I actually get my shoulder blade to move along with me. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get your shoulder blade to move up and guide you as your arm elevates. So the best way to do that is to Push your head back and tuck your chin. It's gonna tighten up the muscles right up around your spine. Push your hips back just a little bit, and then don't come way out over here. You actually maybe, so if this is coming straight out to the side, you actually come out at about 45 degrees right here. So, put myself in this posture, uses some back muscles, push my hips back, and then go out 45 degrees, and this is it. I'm going for 10. And there's 10. And that's a lateral raise. Next exercise is run over here, and this is what we call a face pull. The nice thing about the face pull, this is one of the kings of all of the shoulder exercises because it's used for developing back as well. It's used for developing your back of your shoulder, so your rear delt muscle. It's used for oftentimes people will have like different irritations in their shoulder and things like this, and this is actually an exercise that's usually prescribed to help with irritation in your shoulder. Either way, you do this one, it's going to start to build a lot of muscle behind in this whole area in the back of your shoulder and your upper back. So what you do is I'll hold it, I find the rubber end right here. Usually this might be not all the time rubber, but sometimes it's just a rope and there's a knot at the end. So just grab it by the knot in between my thumb and my index finger, take a couple of steps back, and then when I pull, I end with my knuckles about ear height and my elbows all the way back. So every time I'm pulling back, I'm not just coming back this way, I'm also getting this movement to happen as well. So it's not just this, it's this. So let's see if we can see that again. So I come back, and it's not just here, it's also that. And let me do two more. And there's two. And that's called a face pull. And this, again, this is like one of the, this is like the king of shoulder exercises. Now this final exercise is it's what we call a scaption, and it's very similar to a lateral raise, but instead of having your knuckles facing up, I'm actually gonna have my thumbs facing up. So it's almost like I'm always giving myself a thumbs up, and it's very intentionally at this 45 degrees, right? So if this is straight out, that's straight forward. I wanna find a middle in between right here, and that's 45 degrees like this. And so I've got my thumbs up, tighten my abdominals, make myself nice and tall. And now the whole idea with this one, it's called a scaption, and there's a bone in your body called your scapula, and so it's actually moving your scapula. So the scapula is actually your shoulder blade. So think of this as moving your shoulder blade. And there is my 10. Now when you put all those together, so when you put all those exercises together, that's just gonna really develop the front, back, or front, middle, and back of your shoulder, at all those big 3 parts of your shoulder, and develop them. It's also those particular exercises, if you do them, you do them well, the stronger they get, the more mobile you'll get, and actually have better shoulder health as well if you do them fairly consistently. So it's got a nice little aesthetic, and also nice little, make your shoulders feel good and strong as well. So I hope you enjoy them, and you usually want to do somewhere between 3 sets to 5 sets, 3 sets to 5 sets of 10 repetitions.